Hello everyone, my name is Josh and welcome to the third bonus video for the Sonic 2 playthrough. Today we're going to talk about the development of the 8-bit version of the game before we go back into the 16-bit version in the next video. So first off, let's talk about the two cheat codes that are in this game, and there is one for each version of the game. And both of these codes go towards the level select. So to get the level select on the Master System version, when you're powering the game on, hold left and 1 and 2 on the Player 2 controller. When the intro sequence begins, release all the buttons and then start the game as normal. To get level select on the Game Gear version, when the intro starts, hold down, left, 1, 2 and start. When the title screen appears, wait for a ring sound to play twice, and then release all buttons and press start. So right here we have a prototype of the Game Gear version of Sonic 2. This is the auto demo, and the auto demo is a non-playable prototype of Sonic 2 for Game Gear. There are quite a few differences between this proto and the final release, most notably the intro, title screen, the Green Hill Zone tile set, and the lack of tails. Many early screenshots of the game shown during development are theorized to come from this proto, the main giveaway being that gameplay is always the exact same. This prototype has a build date of December the 5th, 1991, quite a few months before the final release date of September 5th, 1992. Let's discuss some differences. First off, the Sega screen is completely different, with no chant. The title screen only features Sonic, who hasn't got any animation, but does rise from behind the ribbon. The opening cutscene also only shows Sonic running. Badniks, bosses, end-of-act panels, Chaos Emeralds, and monitors are completely absent. Only Green Hills, Sky High, and Underground have artwork at this point. All other zones are either not present or don't have tiles yet. The level order in the internal data is slightly different. Green Hills and Sky High are the first two, followed by several acts with no data, or Zone 3. Underground takes up the fourth slot. The remaining zones would have most likely stayed in their final positions. Sonic has the idle animation from Sonic 1 on Master System, and a single music track plays throughout the demo. There's nothing like it in the final. The intro cutscene and the title screen are also silent, and the rolling sound is different, with a cartoonish pitch shift at the end. The falling sound does not exist, and jumping on a spring sound is the exact same as the rolling sound. Let's discuss some of the zone differences. In Green Hills Zone, the art is completely different, being similar to the credits sequence in the final. The layout of all three acts is present in the data, though they vaguely resemble the final layouts. The loop scene in Act 1 only works because it's heavily scripted. When control is given back into the player by hacking the proto, the other loops don't work as intended. Sky High Zone seems to be an even earlier version than the one shown in various magazines, as no trees or flowers exist yet. The lightning flashes are different. Both the rain and the lightning flashes take priority, being placed in front of Sonic and the HUD. And the raining act has a pool of opaque water at the bottom that you can't see because I'm just letting the game play itself while I talk about this stuff. And Underground Zone, many tiles exist here that were removed in the final, including grey bricks and curvy stone pathways. Most of the zone is currently made up of layered minecart rails. It's likely the tile definitions were changed to accommodate the minecart rails seen in the demo, and the existing act layouts weren't updated. Act 3 uses shorter alternate 16x16 block data in which neither the background or the Minecraft rails are defined. The way the tile definitions are laid out matches perfectly with the layout of the first two acts. However, since Act 3 is empty, this difference cannot be normally seen. The large stone building and what appear to be non-functional horizontal crushers can be seen at the top of Act 1. Neither of these appear in the final release. The minecart wheel also sits above the rail rather than inside it. So what stages are actually in this prototype? Well, by hacking the game and making Sonic start on different stages, we can see what we've got. Zone 0 Act 0 is Green Hills Zone, and this is the stage that is displayed prominently in Auto Demo's first moments. This is also the only stage that Sonic can traverse completely, but cannot actually be finished. Zone 0 Act 1 is another Green Hill Zone act, most likely Act 2, which has a very similar layout to the final. For some reason, some areas will trigger the heavily scripted loop animation that usually plays in Act 1. Zone 0 Act 2 is the Green Hill Boss Act. This stage is far easier than in the final, and contains an S-tube that appeared in Green Hill Zone in Sonic 1. The boss area is also flat, not the bowl shape in the final. Zone 0 Act 3 is an empty Sky High stage, and the same applies to Zone 1 Act 0. Zone 1 Act 1 is another Sky High level that's not too interesting, and Zone 1 Act 2 is the Sky High segment that's shown during the auto demo. By giving control to the player, they'll fall to their death, but by using a glitch that allows Sonic to run on thin air, you can see that there's a single cliff to the far right side. Zone 2 Act 3 is an underground stage. Zone 3 Act 0 is the same as the previous, except Sonic begins in a minecart. Zone 3 Act 1 is the last stage shown in the auto demo usually. In Zone 3 Act 2, Sonic falls in a minecart before the game locks up. Zone 3 Act 3, the HUD along with a single minecart wheel at the top of the screen. The background is a glitched mess of light blue with darker blue triangles. The game resets in a few seconds, most likely an extremely early version of Gimmick Mountain Zone. In Zone 4 Acts 1 and 2, the ring and time counters appear, but the screen itself is a glitched mess of the title screen. With that said, that's everything about the auto demo, so let's take a look at some unused sprites that are found in this prototype's data. Unused sprites that appear in the prototype's data include Sonic laughing in a very creepy manner, a modified Sonic 1 Master System waiting sprite, here Sonic looks happy, an early skidding animation, the Sonic 1 Master System death sprite, a monitor, a switch, some spikes facing upwards, an explosion, a block fragment, the trees from Sky High Zone, the early level card fonts, and the early level card itself. Now let's take a look at some early magazine screenshots that come from in between the auto demo and the final release. First off, we have this screenshot of Underground Zone, showing the wheels on the minecart sparkling. It also has a different life icon, so this is most likely a mock-up. This screenshot of Sky High shows the early Sky High checkered floors, and some minor palette differences and more trees. This screenshot of Aqua Lake Zone shows a checkerboard floor in Act 2. This screenshot is found on the outside of a US Sonic 2 Game Gear bundle box for some reason. And this image of Green Hill Zone is thought to be a mock-up, as there are too many sprites to be rendered at once on this hardware. The boss and Robotnik do not appear here, and there are rings which don't exist in Boss Axe. Now let's talk about some of the unused sprites that are actually in the final game. First off is this Crying Tails animation that was most likely going to be used in the ending. The board Sonic animation from Sonic 1 Master System. The waiting animation was changed slightly in the sequel. The Sonic 1 Master System death sprite as shown before. The final uses an updated sprite. The body of the Underground Zone boss, and the body of the Sky High Zone boss, that are normally unseen. Unused monitors include a Sonic monitor. It can be found in a wall in Crystal Lake Zone, but the graphics are obscured. When collected, it grants a continue. A question mark monitor. It may have given a random amount of rings. A grey sneaker monitor, most likely slowed Sonic down. And the arrow monitor, most likely intended to be used as checkpoints like the 8-bit version of Sonic 1. We also have some bricks for Underground Zone. The curved tunnels from the auto demo are still leftovers in the final game. More unused tiles for Underground Zone. A floating platform for Underground Zone. A boulder for Sky High Zone. It most likely rolled down the hills in Act 1. A platform for Sky High Zone. Some object in Sky High's tiles. And an Aqua Lake block. Right here we have a little interesting thing. The Gimmick Mountain title card using its full name instead of being abbreviated like the final. We also have some unused music. A tune that is very similar to what we got in Crystal Lake. It could have been an early version of that zone's music. Now let's talk some of the version differences between the Master System and the Game Gear release. Now, the Game Gear release is actually, once again, the most common release, and the Master System version was actually not released in North America. Japan and Europe got the Master System version, but America did not, so America got stuck with the harder version of the game. Anyway, let's go through some differences. The Game Gear version's intro actually shows Tails being kidnapped, while on the Master System version he already is kidnapped. The sky was also changed from a bright cyan to a very dark shade on the Game Gear. The music played during the intro on the Master System is the title screen music on the Game Gear version. The Master System's title screen plays no music, while the Game Gear intro plays the scrambled egg music. Sonic's ledge animation is slower on the Game Gear version. The boss music is different between the two versions. The Game Gear version was notably mixed into Japanese metallic madness in Sonic CD. Some minor level changes in the Game Gear version. These changes don't appear to be done to make the stages easier to navigate within the smaller screen resolution, unlike the first game on Game Gear, which makes this game really difficult to play. The geometry of some boss fights was made smaller in the Game Gear version. For example, the bowl on Green Hills is narrower, and the final boss makes the horizontal pipe exit on the left invisible. Boss fights in general are more difficult on the Game Gear version. Underground Zone's rocks now bounce at unpredictable heights. The Aqua Lake box is no longer cheesable as it constantly moves towards Sonic, forcing him to dodge him. The Green Hill Zone boss will now sometimes combine the high leap and low roll attacks rather than doing one or the other. The final boss is not necessarily harder, but it doesn't follow the exact same attack pattern as in the Master System version. The Master System version of Aqua Lake Act 2 uses a murky green palette and the waterline is invisible, while the Game Gear version changes the palette to a clean blue and the water visibly rises at the beginning. When Sonic drowns on the Master System version, he is opening and closing his mouth, like the first game on the Master System. In the Game Gear, he drowns with his mouth open, like the 16-bit Genesis games, For some reason, a Speed Shoes power-up appears in the Master System version in Aqua Lake Act 2. It plays a unique music track, but does not give the usual speed-up effect. This was changed to a ring monitor in the Game Gear version. The sound effect that plays when Sonic spins on the wheels in Gimmick Mountain and Crystal Egg is different between versions. The bad ending music is extended on Game Gear, while it cuts short on Master System. Meanwhile, the good ending has its own tune on the Game Gear version. When Sonic and Tails, if you have the good ending, look up at the stars in the ending on Game Gear, a different sound effect is played. So that was me talking about the somewhat vague development history of Sonic 2 for 8-bit consoles. Overall, not as interesting as the 16-bit version's development, which we will definitely be getting back to in the next episode, but still somewhat interesting nonetheless. It's interesting about the fact that the Game Gear version didn't bother to try and change the level design of the stages to make them easier, which also makes the Game Gear version incredibly difficult to play, and is also the reason why I picked to play the Master System version over the Game Gear release. Overall, Sonic 2 8-bit is a pretty meh game, but, I'm not here to talk about that. Next episode, we're going to be finishing up our talks about the development of the 16-bit version, and we'll be finishing off this playthrough soon after that. Until then, ciao!